Okay, cool. So we're going to try and see how we can go about doing this. Okay, so from here to there, but we need poses in between, obviously, because that's just not enough. Okay, so the one thing that I like to do um, as a as like a platform or like a foundation or just a slight help um, is to use the computer for what it's best at, and that is finding an exact in between these two poses, and then building our breakdown pose off of that pose. Okay, so that we don't now have to go and pose this character completely from scratch for this breakdown, and then all the things where the motion can be more or less directly in between those two, we already get for free. Okay, so what I mean by that is when I do an in-between or a breakdown, I normally do this. Select all the controls that you have on your character. Select all the frames in your dope sheet or action editor or timeline, wherever, and temporarily put it into linear to get this pose, and then key that and put everything back onto constant. Then, okay, if you have any IK/FK issues, make sure that you are on the right IK/FK. That would be the exact 100% in between that the computer has generated between that pose and that pose. Okay, so but that's boring. Okay, I mean, just doing that is pointless. We could have just left it, and Spline would have done that in any case. But it's really nifty now as like a base to build off of for our actual breakdown. Okay, so here we can now focus on adding in appeal using different principles of animation. So looking at adding in arcs, looking at overlap, looking at easing in and out, looking at all of those things, anticipation and things, to make this a lot more interesting. Okay, so we're going from here to there and adding as many blocking poses as we need until we're happy with the movement. Okay, so this is about 25, 26 frames of animation that we're going to be looking at. So just this little section over there that we're going to be focusing on now. Okay, so we had that pose into that pose, and then there was just the fingers actually wrapping around his head over there. Cool, so first things first, this is the pose that the computer gave me. And now we can go about and make this more interesting. So the first thing, the big motion here is to do with his arm. And whenever we're animating arms, overlap comes into play. Okay, so I'm going to try and find a pose which is more interesting than this. And the first thing that I want to do is think about, completely forgot what I was going to say, but how we can make this more interesting. So I'm going to look at the path of action from there to there. So currently it's going straight up from there to there. Okay, so it's literally a straight line and the hand moving up. That's boring. We know things don't move in straight lines, they move on arcs. Okay, so we're going to try and implement some form of arc into it. And we're also going to try and implement some overlap into it. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to change this pose and break it up a little bit. So I'm going to, instead of having it just go straight up, have it move in more of an arc coming around like that. Okay, so let's try and do that. So I'm going to rotate it up, open this arm up a little bit. Okay, if you think about overlap, overlap's basically drag. So as this arm swings up, the hand will definitely drag behind a little bit. Okay, now the other thing that I do here a lot is I specifically go and do one thing at a time, key that in, look at the motion. Okay, breakdowns and in-betweens are all about defining the motion of our animation. Okay, it's creating our arcs, creating our paths of action, saying how we want things to move. It's not about the poses anymore. We've got the key poses in. So now it's about breaking that down and adding more detail. Okay, so I would do one thing. So adjust the arm, look at what the animation looks like. Okay, so this is it. I make small changes. So I get my in-between pose and I build on that. I change one thing, see how it moves. Add on that, see how it moves. Decide it's a bad idea, undo it, do something else. Okay, so this is a process which really can make or break the animation. It can really make it much more interesting or just leave it dull. Okay, so here we're really sculpting it out. Okay, so let's open this up a little bit more. Okay, so this is still 100% the in-between, between there and there, in terms of the fingers and the hand. So let's go and rotate the hand just a bit closed. Okay, more drag. Okay, so remember overlap, drag, hands, very important. Okay, so try and have that overlap a little bit more. Okay, so by delaying the joints at the end of the chain, we're adding an overlap. Okay, so we're countering what it does by slowing those down before it gets there. Okay, so also remember key poses and solid drawing and all of those come into play here. Trying to get the silhouette to look as appealing as possible. Even though it's just a breakdown and a quick pose from one place to another, we still have to make sure that it reads well, okay? And that's in this view as well as in that view, okay? So that we can clearly see that doesn't really look like a hand, so let's pose it to look like a hand specifically. Okay, so one thing, breaking the silhouette there with the forearm and the thumb, you know, that's very, very, very important. Trying to break up that complete solid line over there around the fingers. But while still maintaining an appealing pose. Okay, so small changes, but more distinctly a hand than what we had before. Okay, so let's leave that there for now. Then we go and say, okay, well, we still want to add more detail. So in between those poses, what can we do? Okay, so there again, now we have this triangular movement like that. I want to sculpt that out specifically around the top here so that it makes more of like that kind of shape, whatever you call that. So at the top, let's add another in between here as well. Again, same thing, select all my controls, select all my keys, temporarily put it in linear, press key, put everything back into constant. Make sure that you are still in FK or IK, and then take it from there. Okay, so here, definitely want this arm a little bit more out there, higher up. Okay, so that pose there can definitely be a little bit more interesting. So let's see if we go and rotate this first finger out a bit more. Let's get it sticking out just there a bit. And then we can pose these two a little bit more together. Okay, so break that. Oops. If you do that, if you key it on the wrong frame, then just select all the controls and just copy your pose and then paste it back on top of your actual frame that you're animating on. Okay, overlap. So you can see we're very slowly, but adding in much more information into that movement than what we had. really defining it exactly how we want it to work. So another one over here. Okay, so definitely some more. Okay, these definitely can be rotated a little bit more. Close those fingers a bit. Okay, and if we wanted to anticipate this just a little bit, we could do that as well. So anticipate just the hand moving. So for instance, we could put a key in between over here quickly. Okay, back into constant. So from there, anticipating that movement of the hand going out, we would literally do the opposite. So we'd have it rotate in a bit. Don't know if it's necessary, but that's how you would go about doing it. I think I'd rather have this. I'm going to delete that frame and just add it again. Okay, so I've got that pose. I want this arm to go out, but this definitely to drag in more there. So, just want to see something. Somewhere there's an onion skin feature. It's also nice to use. That's one gajillion times more interesting than what the computer would have given us. And it's literally just taking our animation principles and applying them slowly. Okay, so this compared to if we literally just apply the same I just want to see what frames. This one's on. So where the computer would have done straight up to there, we've now gone better. Entirely just animation principles. Think about our arcs, thinking about our silhouettes. How do we get a nicer silhouette there? Okay, compare this silhouette to this silhouette. Okay, yes, it's still outside of our body, but let's pull it out a little bit more. Let's not have any visual ambiguity over there next to the ear and the finger. Okay, not bad, but we can make it better. Bring it out a little bit. Think of our path of action. Think of overlap, anticipation, all of those things. And it's literally just thinking about those things while we go and do this. Anyway, that's, I think, is pretty nifty. So there you can see I now have keys on frame 1, frame 3, frame 7, frame 12, frame 18. Literally by frame 27, I already have 7 different poses just for my blocking. Okay, and that's pretty much as dense as you guys need to do it. Okay, so if you, as I said earlier, if you guys don't have poses on at least every 5 frames, if not more, then you haven't put enough detail in there so that when we switch it over into Spline later, that it's going to be perfect. It's just literally now polishing it off. Just as an example. You know, so now it's very little polish actually needed in that. Okay, there's a bit of a bump. That's the transition between IK FK. Okay, so that is what you guys need to be busying yourselves with until your next submission, as well as slowly starting with your facial animation. Okay, so we did the whole lip sync thing on Monday. So going through that, I see a lot of you have begun, which is great. We will on next week Monday go through some more facial animation, so looking at eyes and brows specifically, and that's it. Okay. Remember, your next submission is still in constant. Everything is in constant until I basically say, okay, put it into basic. Okay. Thanks, guys. Have a great long weekend.